these to start off in our with the beta of our application. But at a high level, these are the different categories that we are creating survey questions for in beta, and this is what you can expect in regards to your application to regards to your user experience when you're navigating through the app. One more time, please. And then here's just like a visual of these different categories in the app itself for you to be able to navigate. And then one more time, please. And here's the actual app itself. So in this particular case, we focused on just like walking through the transportation survey. Navigating through the app, which again Devani is going to be demoing here in a moment. You're basically going to be able to you'll go from that map screen that we saw on the previous slide. And then you'll be able to select that category. That category in this case is transportation survey. And then you'll be asked a number of survey questions with various types of questions. Here we basically are just like highlighting like the things that we're like counting and whatnot. But just wanted to kind of highlight like what you can expect from a user experience and what that navigation flow would look like. Next slide, please.
Oh, actually, can go back one.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. All right. Just real quick, why did we decide to start with these data sections or survey sections for our beta? These are just the kind of the primary data points that we thought would be good to collect for community members. I'll kind of go into a bit more detail when we go through the demo about what specifically we're collecting. But the broad strokes of it are a lot of people believe that there is data on everything, and there generally is. But the problem is, how is that data related to, a geographical location or to an individual? And so you can absolutely go online in most counties and find a map of potholes and trees and so on and so forth. But what you really can't find maps of are things like piles of trash. Where are all of the broken signposts and the general physical disorder that you might see that might be meaningful to you, but isn't necessarily being captured by any government agency? And ditto for things like public services, or most importantly, grocery stores. There is a lack of information, just writ large across the United States, of where you can find food. It seems like such a fundamental thing, but actually it's quite hard to go and find an up-to-date data set on working grocery stores, and more importantly, grocery stores that might actually have food that isn't, chips and drinks, right? And so these are the types of things that we're hoping to capture with this survey. And basically, the reason for it is because this data doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in a comprehensive and constructive way for communities to easily use. I am a professional at this. This is my entire job all day, is looking for data. And I could not tell you where to find an accurate list of grocery stores. And I spent hours and hours and hours trying to do this. And so it is seems like a bit of an oversimplification that we just need this data, so we're going to use this. But this data is really important. It is incredibly important. I think I mentioned in a previous talk that there was recently an article out of the Washington Post that was talking about the issues in indigenous healthcare simply because they don't have enough data about the population they're surveying, right? And so these are the kind of issues that this application is trying to bridge. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. And so as part of that, we want to make sure that this data is easily and publicly available. So this is just a mock-up of what a dashboard might look like. Once we start collecting more data, we'll be able to process it into a more comprehensive fashion. But we want to make it so it is really simple for just people who are not data scientists, people who are just average folk walking around in their communities, and they just want to know, hey, what's the proportion of asthma in my neighborhood? How often do we see high AQI, or just have bad air? How often are we seeing rats in our trash and things of that nature? we want to make sure that that information is easily digestible and very comprehensive. And that's not just for community members, that's also for policymakers. I also mentioned in a previous talk, policymakers are not data literate. They are not science literate. Some are, absolutely, but the vast majority of them are just normal people who just, this isn't their job. They don't have to fill their brain with this kind of stuff. So we want to make sure that whatever information we're providing back to the community, because the importance is that the data that we're collecting from these community members is returned to the community so they are able to use it and express themselves in advocacy and policy. But also, on top of that, we want to make sure that the data is coded in such a way that academics are able to ingest that information and create new bits of research to help forward policymakers and community members in that advocacy. So all of the data that is available and visualized on the dashboard is also going to be available to export, and it's going to be identified by the block ID so that you can map it and you can play with it as you will and try to find create new conclusions out of that data set. Next slide, please.
Thanks so much, Eli. And so next, we want to kind of just go through and kind of highlight the importance of data transparency and its importance. Oh, well, that's the name of the title. But yeah, so one of the reasons why it's so important to be transparent about this data is because at the end of the day, we are trying to help and serve communities, but that doesn't just happen, right? Like communities, especially communities suffering with environmental injustice, there are they have reasons not to trust, right? They have reasons not for the scenarios that Eli highlighted earlier. Here are funds that my community qualifies for, and here I am going out on my own trying to figure out how to go after these things, reaching out to pulling all of the levers that I can, reaching out to all of the organizations that are opposed to help support me and my community, and here they are telling me that I can't move forward because there aren't clear definitions for these things. And so one of the things about data transparency is just focusing on being able to build trust. And you build trust by being transparent about how data is collected, being transparent about how data is handled, who's responsible for it. And at the bringing it up to the research level and to the policymaker level, by us being able to thanks so much. By us being able to focus on you can just hit the red X, please. Thank you. By us being able to focus on, keeping data transparent, we're also able to focus on making sure these stakeholders, policymakers, academics are also held accountable for what's going on in these communities because we have standardized practices that they can follow in order to adhere to our data policy rules. Data transparency is also ensures that we have ethical use, as we were just talking about a moment ago. And at the end of the day, in order for us to be able to collect information that's relevant, in order for us to be able to collect information that matters, not just to policymakers, but to people living in these disadvantaged communities, we have to collaborate on all levels. We have to collaborate with local organizations. We have to collaborate together with research institutions and with government. Data transparency gives us the ability to do that. And so just walking through the data journey here at the bottom, we're obviously going through the mobile app itself. The mobile app is, for MyBlockCounts, is centered on data collection. We've made sure to use best practices in regards to securing information that's being collected and being stored in the cloud. After that data is collected, we talked about how that information is processed. We again don't assign any of the actual data that's collected to unique users. We only associate them with the blocks that are defined for it through those block IDs. In regards to the data dashboard that's under development, We want to be able to use the insights from that data that was collected and protected, and to start to help the community be able to analyze it. Like Eli was saying earlier, this shouldn't just be information that like is just kind of pie in the sky. This should be things that allows you to have a better understanding of what's happening in the community around you. And that's where that analysis piece comes in. After we're able to analyze data, we want to be able to, again, share that through that, that front-facing portal where you can go and export the data that's relevant to you, relevant to your community, look at the metrics, play around with the different graphs and whatnot, and export it in a way that allows you to communicate it to your stakeholders, to your community, or to your policymakers. And again, through each step of this data journey, protection is key. Privacy is key. We want to be able to, ensure that users feel safe sharing things that are going on in their community, and know that there is a practice put in place in order to protect them, so that they can influence the things that matter to them. Sure. Some of the questions that we do want to kind of like open things up, but some of the questions that were asked as we were going through different levels of user research is, how do you validate the accuracy of community collected data? As far as like collecting the accuracy of it, we have like several validation methods. The plan is basically to cross-reference existing like data sets. So again, using open data, using open data, their API. These are well-established, well-defined, boundaries that have been scoped out and that are publicly available, well-documented, which means that not only are we able to share publicly, like, hey, this is how it's collected. These are the algorithms or the strategies that are used in order to build it. It's points that we can actually reference and we can have conversations about, because again, it's well-established practices, not things happening behind the scenes that people are basically just like having to just guess at. A couple other questions that have come up is, can local governments or organizations customize for the application itself when it comes to collecting the data? Can local governments or organizations customize the survey questions for their specific needs? We're going to talk to in the future about in a future slide about kind of just like our overall vision for where the app, how we would like to see the app expand. Before we kind of dive into that, we want to build this with the community leaders in mind. We want to build this with the community policy makers in mind. And in order for us to do that, the community engagement piece is basically like going to be our ask from you for today. We want to know what matters in your community. We want to know what metrics you specifically want to see in your community be collected and be displayed. We want to know what your organization's value when it comes to individual neighborhoods. And we understand, especially living in this like big data world, that there's a lot of things that we can streamline. There's a lot of data being collected all over the place, but every community is unique. Every community has their own unique quirks, their own values. When they come together, they come together in their own unique ways, and we want to be able to capture that. We want to be able to have data be able to speak to that, and then we want to be able to empower you as community leaders, empower the policymakers to basically be able to tell that story of your community through the data that's collected. But to be completely honest, the only way to do that is through your engagement. We want to be able to work alongside with you all to be able to collect information that's going to be relevant. So as we're going through these different development phases for the application, the outcomes that are being developed are focused on the things that matter to you. Going back to the actual question itself, can local governments or organizations customize the survey questions to their specific needs? Simply yes. Everything that we define as far as the different categories that we're collecting information on, those are actual prompts that can be updated or can be enhanced to ask survey questions and target like your community to be able to ask the specific questions that your organization cares about. It allows you to get hyper focused, localized data on on just about anything that that you want to quantify and be able to track that within your community. Um, and before I guess I go through all of the Q&A, I'd like to kind of just uh, uh, in the next slide, we're going to be just going through the actual live demo of MyBlockCounts. You're going to be able to, Devon is going to walk you through exactly how, next slide, please. Devon is going to walk you through exactly how you go ahead and get set up. Again, we wanted to focus on keeping it a very simple user interface. We don't think that it should be super complicated for you to be able to provide this information. And so the focus is on making sure that we streamline that process as quickly as possible. And again, for the community leaders hey, Devani, can you hear us? Oh, yeah, no problem. And yeah, again, for the community leaders in the room, the demo that's going to be shared via Zoom call is just in order to make sure that we're able to have people who are tuning in through YouTube are able to kind of see a walkthrough. But we actually have a call of action for those of you in a room. So in the room, I'm going to hand out here just an entry form, an interest form that basically allows you to go in and fill in your information about yourself, about your community, and basically allows us to add you onto the mailing list to receive updates about MyBlockCounts, but then also allows you to share information again about what you believe to be important metrics to track within your community. And so while we're navigating through getting Devani back on Zoom, we're basically going to kind of get that set up. As far as actually setting up the beta, I also have a live demo that you guys can interact with today for those of you that are in the room. So super excited to be able to share what we've been working on.
Okay.
Hey, Devani.
I just, you're already on it, so I was like, just go for it.
He was like, "This is the one."
Whenever you're ready, Devani, you can go ahead and share.
I'm sorry. I can't see the presentation, so I don't. Hold on. Yeah. Just can't see anything right now. One second.
I'll get that with it in 10 seconds.
I'm gonna screen share in a second. Does everyone see?
Yep, we can all see it. We can all see and hear you. Let's get your face out of there.
Perfect. Um.
Oh no. It is.
Submit.
Hey, Devani, are you
Yeah.
able to move the Zoom icon off of your
Oh,
screen?
sorry.
There we go.
I forgot. My bad, guys. My bad. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. We could do. I don't know which one you guys would want. Um.
Let's start with physical disorder. I feel like that's a comprehensive one. So, the physical disorder, that's this is one of the more important data sets that I think we are going to be collecting, simply because these are the things that are not very often collected by government data sets. So you can see here what Devani is demonstrating is how the information is collected. We tried to make it as simple as possible and as easily understandable as possible. So while some of them may not be, explicit metrics in the sense of like objectively identifying, what is a little, what is a lot, it's easy. It's easy enough to understand for just the everyday person, so they don't have to go out and like weigh the garbage on their sidewalk, right? So the reason this kind of information is really important is because these are conditions in neighborhoods that people readily identify as having deteriorating effects on their sense of community and their sense of neighborhood. And the idea isn't to create a data set where you're trying to say how bad your neighborhood is or anything, but we want to be realistic, right? We want to be able to identify the problems in your community and express those in a really simple fashion. So if you could stop scrolling just there, Devani, be great. Thank you. You're fine. So as you can see, like there is a lot of variety of question, and also the idea is that we want to make sure that community members can just capture the information that they think is important, submit it, and be on their way. We don't want them to have to go through a whole bunch of a whole list of questions. So we made the surveys very expansive, but the criteria to submit a survey is very minimal, right? You just need to share your location so the block can generate. You see something that's really important, or just oh, this is I don't like this. Just mark it down, hit submit, and go on your way, right? Like that's the kind of general idea of what we're trying to accomplish here. So we wanted to make sure that the questions were easily answerable in like less than 5 seconds, right? Like, oh, how many rats do I see there? Oh, I see like 4 rats. All right, 4 rats, we're good. Let's go. And that is pretty much how the rest of the surveys look. Again, we're not trying to collect data in such a scientifically accurate way that we can, legitimately quantify, how much trash is there, or how broken are the broken windows, or things of that nature. But we want to be able to collect enough information that it can provide a conclusion to community members and policymakers and academics. So, Duane, do you want to go back to the home screen for me, please? So as we mentioned, when you open up the app, after you log in, of course, you get this little survey home, or this little map. This map is generated through OpenStreetMaps. OpenStreetMaps is a very, very, very comprehensive geography API. It's updated by community members already. So there's proof of concept right there, and that's a very useful publicly available app. And so we built off of that in order to create the general block schema that you see here. So if you could go to the survey home again. After you've logged in and you've seen your block being properly identified, again, should point out that it might not be the block that you identify as a block, but it is a small constrained area that is easily understood as a block. You can go through and select what bucket of questions you want to be answering. So if you want to maybe go into the health one real quick. Thank you. And so again, a lot of these things are designed to be easily understood and collected by community members. So we want to make sure that we're not asking overly scientific questions that people will have to Google the question in order to find the answer, or in order to answer it, right? We want to make sure that these are things that people can just readily understand as like, these impact my health. And so a lot of the features are directly corresponding to, obviously, physical features within your neighborhood. So you don't have to, count the pollutants in the air or anything like that, buy any special equipment. This should be able to be done by pretty much anybody with, a thumb. And even without a thumb, you can control your phone in many ways. And so all of these questions are designed to be really easy to answer in a very fast manner, which is also why we want to be able to allow folks in communities to customize the surveys to suit their needs. So obviously we can't have, the team is what, four people? It's a small team. And we're all very smart. Trust me, we're all very, very smart. But there are limits to what we know, and we can't know what's going on in everybody's community. And so that's again why we rely on the community engagement piece and folks like you to come and tell us like, oh, this would be really important to collect for my neighborhood. This would be really important to collect for my neighborhood. And we want to be able to streamline that process so that you can give us those questions, we can put them in the app, and then you can send folks forth or do it yourself.
Thanks so much. All right. Thank you, Devani. So we're gonna, if you can switch back over to the keynote.
Sorry guys, I can't really hear you that clearly.
Control. You can control command tab. There we go. And next tab, please. So we're gonna, I guess, like follow up with future plans and just like overall vision. So this is kind of just like I guess like I'd like to kind of have things be a little bit more interactive and kind of go from there. So at least initially, we walked through and the fundamental piece of the beta for the app is just focused on like making sure that those underlying components are there. The ability to have a safe place to authenticate into, to share your location information, and have that be have that data be anonymous. But then also like the ability to be able to go through and define your block, the ability to go through and be able to ask and answer like survey questions and get that stored securely. Those are just like the fundamentals. That's just like starting point. As Eli like alluded to or said just a moment ago, we're a small team. We can sit down and we can brainstorm all day. But at the end of the day, as we're refining this from the user experience down to like the questions that are being asked, we can brainstorm all day. But at the end of the day, like in order for us to be able to meet your communities where they are, we need to know what is important to you. And so my vision moving forward with MyBlockCounts is being able to, being able to like navigate, like collaborating with you all. In addition to that, we have like different features that we're looking to expand on. On the map screen, you saw there was a camera icon. That camera icon is basically used. We want to capture real-time information. I live in Baltimore. Graduated from Morgan State University. Still live in the area, and the Laurelville community is I love it. And there was one day where we had super tight. It was like live on a super tight street, and the trash truck came through, knocked down. By accident, knocked down some of the trash cans and whatnot, and there was like debris kind of that was just like moving throughout the neighborhood and whatnot, and scenarios like that, where it's just like there's something happening inside the community. I want to be able to capture it, log it in real time. I don't want to have to go through and file a formal report and say, oh, this is terrible, or I don't want to have to go through and say, okay, well, now that I know that this thing happens, like figure out like who I need to report it to. I just want to be able to take a photo and upload it as seamlessly as possible, and have it be automated to get into the right hands in order to do something about it. And that's what I would like to see, at least in my own community. I would like to be able to easily capture information, be able to categorize it, and then have it automated through some type of AI, through some type of like process automation feature that allows us to kind of put that data in the hands of the person or the group who's responsible for addressing it. In addition to that, I'm a biker. I love biking in my community. One of the things that I value is being able to bike safely. I am thankful that Baltimore has been advocating for adding in bike lanes, into my neighborhood specifically. And some of the problem areas that I have in regards to that is like sometimes it's like broken down debris and there's like glass on the side of the road, and like it like hinders like my ability to be able to like navigate, and it's already like on a busy way. So it's like I'm navigating over broken glass and whatnot. I'd love a streamlined way to be able to quickly report that while I'm literally riding my bike. I can stop for a moment, take a photo, and it's again handled seamlessly. Now the city knows this is a problem, and I don't have to go through a formal calling 611, or is it 411? 411, my apologies. Calling 411 and being like, hey, like this thing is going on, like I need some help. It's like, no, I've identified it with a picture worth 1,000 words. And now it can be processed through some type of like automation in order to get that reported. And so that's what I would like to see. Just as kind of just like me brainstorming like freely out loud. So I'm curious as to like some of the problems happening in your communities, or some of the scenarios that you or use cases that you think may be valuable in your community. If anybody has any, I would love to hear some.
Yeah, go for it. Oh,
Through one.
311.
Thank you. Thank you.
See how often we call it?
Yep. That is a great question. So yeah, so oh, Devani, do you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I think for that, we accounted for discrepancies in like your location, just based on the aspect that like, we know that cellular data, like for example, if you can still see like the screen sharing, like it's not exactly where I live, but it captures the area around it in a way that like accounts for that error. Like, um, the accuracy of it like is because it's not tied to your exact location, it's tied to the block. It kind of alleviates that like, if you're connected to Wi-Fi, if you're not connected to Wi-Fi, either way, the approximate location is what's important. So like, I don't think that would be that big of an issue.
So what would so in that case, what he's explaining is that we so the capabilities there, 1,000%. So the app is downloaded on the device. What we're able to do from a technical standpoint is cache that, right? So we will add in some logic for hey. If you can't connect to Wi-Fi, can't connect to that cloud server that we use to securely store that data, it'll stay on the device and it'll be cached. And then when you're connected, and log back into the app, that cache data can then be saved and submitted, without you having to worry about like, oh well, like now I'm back home and my coordinates have changed. It's like no, like where you started capturing, like that is where like that information will be cached. So that is something that we've thought about, and for sure. Oh, nice. Mm. Mhm. Mm. and share that. So I absolutely love that. Those real time events and whatnot. I also like just like we're in political season and there are events going up and spinning up. Imagine being able to get a push notification that in your neighborhood, 4 blocks away, because we're looking at things on a block level. This is going. You can walk to the event and be able to participate and engage with your community because you have awareness of like what's going on. Absolutely love that. One of the use cases that also came up recently, that same just being able to pin information, was we have like a really in Lorville we have a pretty solid network of like pet owners, and there's like Facebook groups and all of the things. Sometimes our little buddies go missing, and being able to communicate that to the community in real time, and have the community be push notified and like, hey, this is happening. I just saw this little guy. He was running, operating on his own and whatnot. And let me drop a pin. You literally are like able to like that. I feel like that like speaks to like those like different use cases. So thank you so much for sharing with that.
Thank you. Thanks, 4 o'clock.
And that was Siri.
And yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, I think one of the important dimensions of this application is we don't want it to be an entirely negative app, right? We don't want it to be like, oh, my neighborhood's terrible, there's trash everywhere. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like we don't. That's not what this is for. This is to empower your community and to empower your neighborhood. We don't want to turn into like another next door or anything like that. We want it to be a very positive, focused application that allows community members to be able to interact with their community in a positive way. And yeah, part of that is acknowledging the difficulties in your community, but it doesn't have to exclusively be that. And I think that's such a great point, is that there are so many positive things happening in so many people's neighborhoods that you just don't know about until after they happen, right? And also to kind of piggyback on what you were mentioning earlier about being able to kind of get a coalition of people together to go out and collect this data, that's also something we were very aware of in the development of this. That's partially why we made it so simple, so you could, hand a piece of paper and a phone to somebody and they'll be able to take off running, right? Like that is the entire goal of it. So we want to be able to make sure that we're capturing positive and negative things and doing it in a way that doesn't make people feel like the whole thing is hopeless, right? We want people to be hopeful when they're using this application and be able to communicate realistically, but in good faith, how they can make their neighborhoods better. And so, yeah, that's such a great point. Thank you.
Back to that accountability piece. Just to expand on that, I also think it could be like that could be useful in the community engaging and things actually getting done. We have like potholes and whatnot. Just the first example that came to mind. It's just like, okay, 47 people reported this. How long, right? Even like metrics on like response times. Like how long did it take to like get repaired?
Yeah.
If they responded at all, where are we on time?
Oh, we got about 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Any? Yeah. can you represent the data that's not misleading? Okay. So some of the initial thoughts that come to mind is the data that's being collected is basically can be used for like storytelling, right? And so you being a steward of the data that you're collecting for your community and that you're like targeting in your specific area, you would be able to have that, right? It's not. I don't believe that like any one singular data set is going to give you like a full picture, right? And so that's why I believe that like telling a story through data is important. There's going to be multiple sources that you go through. This is going to give you a fill in a gap where fill in the gap where we see one, right? We have census data, right, where we're looking at things on a track level. That you can like dig into and say, oh, here are the things that we've been doing that for decades and that exists. But the whole purpose of this is to be able to empower you to be able to collect the information that you care about in order for you to be able to merge it with your existing data sets and build a case for the change that you want to see or the conversations that you're having with your community leaders and your policymakers. So yeah, this is basically giving you a data point on to fill in that grid for your storytelling efforts for your community. Mm-hmm. That is literally exactly what that front facing platform is for. It is to make sure that the data that's collected can be sorted through, can be found, can be identified, and you can export it, download it, and use it for your for your specific efforts. We're not saying we're gonna analyze all of the data for you and say, hey, this is what you need to tell, the story you need to tell. Like, no, we're here to empower communities. We're not here to tell the communities the stories that are important. That's going to come from the people who are living in those communities. That's going to come from the people that are going door to door, already collecting that information, and that's what we're looking to empower. We're not looking to tell the story for you.
Yeah. That's me too. Yeah. No. So the question was, will the data being collected by MyBlockCounts be integrated into the EJ screen? And the answer is yes. There is so much data missing from the EJ screen. I know personally, I made it. So part of the development cycle for this application is then going to be taking in the data and merging with our EJ screen. But I want to be clear too that that is a secondary effect of this data collection, right? Because we want everybody to be able to do that, including folks in California who have the Cal Enviro screen or the Delaware EJ screen or the CJS screen. There are all of these tools that could benefit from having the supplementary data. Like the reason I mentioned the grocery store thing was because that is a data piece that I wanted to use for the EJ screen that was not available. The most recently available data set, I believe, is from Johns Hopkins, and I think it's either 2018 or 2016. It is 2024. That data is not accurate anymore. So the long and short of it is yes, and for others too, right? We don't. It's the whole purpose of it is not just for me to gobble up, right? Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah, so that's so one of the core components that we try to echo like numerous times is like working with these like stakeholders, right? Like working with city governments, working with researchers, working with policymakers, like um, that's all gonna happen from the collaboration piece. That's literally why we're here at the symposium today, right? We understand that these things can't be built in a vacuum and then just set the expectation or cast a vision that things are gonna change overnight. It's like no, like we're trying to build excuse me, we're trying to build that engagement on multiple levels now, so that as we're going to these cities, we're saying, hey, community members are participating and they're sharing what they care about and they're sharing what they're valuing. We see that there was 97 reports of the same incident and whatnot, and look at it now, right? We have time span. It still hasn't been addressed. It's been 3 months. Who do we speak to? Who's responsible? Who do we need to connect with? And that those specific data points can be used as an advocacy effort for getting those community leaders like involved. And hey, we have a centralized place that we can do this across the city, across the state, across the country. In order for us to be able to accomplish things at that scale, we have to work together in order to bring that to light. But that's a real issue that, again, right, even like me, right, I've had to contact all three of those at some point in my experience and whatnot. And, sometimes you see results, sometimes you don't. And I think that can be fixed. I think that if we have like the power of community behind us and the people advocating on multiple sides, I think that we can come together and actually get that problem resolved. And I think that leads to again, going back to to the slides, building trust in the community.
And just to piggyback off of that, I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard the truism that if it wasn't written down, it doesn't exist, right? And so part of this is creating a streamlined method for people to write things down so things exist. Having a substantial and long-lasting and publicly available record are, key facets to making sure that policymakers and just government agencies in general, municipal agencies in general, are listening, right? Because like I just said, if you notice some trash on your sidewalk and you call up 311 and for whatever reason that call information isn't stored, or if you don't keep the record of the call and you call back again and say, hey, I called 3 times, they're like, well, okay, when did you call? What's your CO number? These things are the portions that basically create that paper trail that make it so like we can say quantitatively, you haven't done anything about this, right? And so that's, again, why it's so important that we get community members involved in this project and can get their feedback and, importantly, get their input as well, We want them to test out the app. That's why you have the beta, and we have some extra copies if there are some other folks who you think would benefit from this. We really, really, really want you guys to be a full-throated part of this project. And so that is, again, the entire impetus of this, is that we want communities to be empowered to provide their own data and advocate for themselves in a data-driven fashion. And I think, we have time for one last question. Go for it. Okay, go for it. Devani, if you can hear me, could you pull up the beta again, please?
Yeah, so there were a couple screens. Some of them are just like basic, like authentication. We didn't want to take the time to walk through hey, this is how you log in and whatnot. But as far as overall functionality, the beta was literally just an MVP to put together the core components for the things that we need in order to be able to collect the information. Oh, MVP, a minimum valued product. So we just wanted to focus on getting the concept into an actual app that can be downloaded as like quickly as possible. Because again, the whole premise of it, we can brainstorm all day ideas and do all of the great design work and do all of these things, but again, if you don't know about it, if and if it doesn't like meet your needs or serve you at the end of the day, like we would be brainstorming into a bubble. So the MVP.
Sorry that I can't really hear you guys that well. So could you repeat that?
um,
Just for me to see me log in on the application.
Yeah, no, no. I think we're gonna be. I think we're gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be okay. Thank you. But yeah. I'd love to connect with you like afterwards though, and kind of walk you through. But I want to make sure I also answer your question. Uh, yeah. So we can we would those. Sorry. So community engagement is kind of what's core. But like what would you like to see in regards to that? Like, how do you envision like connecting with your neighbors? Do you just want your neighbors to be able to see like notifications every time your neighbor updates some type of data point, or is there like a certain like streamline of like communication channels? Are you looking to like integrate with like Facebook and like have like it just depends on like how you want to engage. Again, we can brainstorm 1000% and say, hey, this is probably like this might be like what you like, but like how do you envision that? How do you want that? And that's kind of like where our user research phase kind of facilitates like getting into those conversations and getting feedback on that. So
I think that's our time. Sorry. Sorry, that is our time. Malik will be here to answer more questions. I'm sure he would love to talk to you about it, and I will be as well for a little while. So thank you so much for joining us here, and please, if you have any other questions, just feel free to give us an email or talk to us after the session. Have a good one. And thank you, Devani, for suffering through.
thanks, Devani. Oh my gosh.
Really concentrate on like what I'm hearing so I can catch it.
Hey, Devani, can you do me a favor? Can you hear me now?